Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the May 17th, 2023 meeting of the Local Agency for Formation Commission at 2:30. We're now meeting in San Mateo County Board Chambers as well as on Zoom for the public. And at this point, I'll ask the clerk to explain how both written and spoken public comments can be made by attendees of the meetings, either here or on Zoom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For members of the public, the instructions of how to participate in today's meeting may be found on the published agenda. These instructions provide information on how to submit written comments and how to participate on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to proceed with item 1, which is roll call. And Angela, could you also mention any staff and alternate commissioners who are present?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Bigstick?
Present.
Commissioner Martin? Commissioner Mueller? Commissioner Warback?
Here.
Commissioner Slocum?
Here.
Commissioner Michelson? Here. Chair Draper?
I am here, and I'd like for everyone to know that my allergies have really gotten me. So if I sneeze, cough, or need to blow my nose, I apologize in advance.
And then alternate members present, we have alternate Commissioner Jim O'Neill in the audience, staff, Rob Bartoli, Executive Officer, Sophia Ricaldi, Management Analyst, and Timothy Fox, Legal Counsel. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to item number 2, and open public comments for items not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do see one hand raised on Zoom. We have no one wishing to speak in chambers. So give me 1 second and I will call on Andrea Hall. And this is for items not on the agenda. Ms. Hall? You may unmute your microphone now, Ms. Hall. I'm not sure if Ms. Hall is having technical difficulty. Oh. Ms. Hall? It looks like she unmuted her microphone. Mute is off, yeah.
Can you check to see if your microphone is muted in the Zoom room, because she may not hear you asking her.
Okay. Ms. Hall?
Yes.
You may proceed with your comment.
There hasn't been audio for the last 2 minutes,
Oh.
so I'm not sure what I'm commenting on.
Oh. Thank you for letting us know. This is for items not on the agenda, and pardon the technical difficulties, but we did proceed with roll call. That's the only thing that we went through. Did you have a comment for items
Okay.
not on the agenda?
No, I did not.
Thank you. So with that, Madam Chair, we have no public comment for items not on the agenda.
Okay.
Oh, 1 second. I just got a hand from Mike Abunyagi.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can hear me, but for whatever you guys been talking about the last 2-3 minutes, was not able to hear any of this.
Thank you. We apologize. We did proceed with roll call, and now we were taking comments not on the agenda, which is item 2.
Okay.
Did you have a comment for items not on the agenda?
No, I do have a comment on the, I'm trying to see what is item 2?
It's for items not on the agenda.
No, my comments is the items that are on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So with that, Madam Chair, we have no items for, no comments for items not on the agenda.
Okay. Now we'll move on to item number 3, which is the consent calendar, which includes approval of the action minutes of March 15, 2023, consideration of LAFCO file 23-3. And do we have a motion for item 3?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Angela, will you conduct a roll call, please?
Commissioner Big Stick,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Mueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Barback,
Yes.
Commissioner Slocum,
Yes.
Commissioner Mickelson,
Yes.
and Chair Draper.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Your motion passes.
All right. We'll now move on to item 4, which is consideration of adoption of a final work plan and final LAFCO budget for fiscal year 2023-24. And we have a staff presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have now pointers. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was responding to a question to Commissioner.
There we go. Okay. So at the March Commission meeting, the Commission approved a draft budget and work plan for FY 23-24, and today we are presenting a final version for your consideration. The final net operating budget for FY 23-24 is $846,029, which is $500 more than the draft budget approved in March. This includes a 6% increase to salary and benefits, $100,000 for a consultant to assist with MSRs, $40,000 for anticipated county attorney fees, and an estimated carryover fund balance from FY 22-23 of approximately $258,000. The main changes in the final budget include the $500 for a county employee wellness dividend program and a correction to the allocation of unspent reserves to the fund balance, which increased the fund balance from $213,000 in the draft budget to the $258,000 in the final version. As well, it also decreased the 1/3 apportionment that is shared by the cities, county, and special districts from $199,000 to $184,000. All other estimates, including the estimated actuals for FY 22-23, remain the same. The detailed budget can be found on page 39 of the agenda packet. Moving on to the work plan for FY 23-24, staff also reviewed the work plan at the March meeting, and the Commission directed staff at that time to meet with the Budget Committee to reconsider a few items, particularly the municipal service review for the Sequoia and Peninsula healthcare districts and a county-wide fire study. So the Budget Committee met in April, and regarding the MSRs for the MSR for the healthcare district, the two healthcare districts, staff explained that the inclusion of the healthcare district MSR was in response to a request from the League of Women Voters to review their finances, current and future programs, and the district's services related to the health needs of the community. The committee directed staff to remove the item from the MSR SOI list, and staff has been in communication with the new executive director of Peninsula Healthcare District regarding a potential presentation to the commission later this year. The second item that was discussed was the countywide fire study. Staff reviewed the RFP from the Department of Emergency Management and determined that the scope of the plan does not encompass what the objectives of a LAFCo countywide fire study would be, whereas the DEM plan would update the county's evacuation routes to improve their safety, capacity, and viability. A LAFCo countywide fire study would really look at the current and future provision of fire and emergency medical services, as well as explore opportunities for efficient and coordinated delivery of services. So staff has removed the countywide fire study from the work plan for the upcoming year and recommends that the commission review the concept next year. And finally, the Budget Committee also requested to move up the County Harbor District MSR update in the prioritization list from ahead of the MSRs that are on this list for the cities of Burlingame and Hillsborough, San Bruno and Millbrae, and Foster City. However, LAFCO law states that the commission shall review and update sphere of influences every 5 years or as necessary. And since these cities have not, this would be their first round MSR SOI, it really should be prioritized. But it should also be noted that the proposed budget includes funds for a consultant. So if the commission chose to direct staff to hire a consultant to work on the County Harbor District MSR update, it could be done concurrently with the staff-led MSRs. There were no changes to the applications for boundary changes. As the commission knows, we have an application from the city of East Palo Alto to establish EPASD as a subsidiary district of the city. We're also anticipating an application from the county regarding the CSA 11 sphere amendment and annexation, as well as some other applications. And finally, staff added two projects to the work plan, which include updates on the Broadmoor Police Protection District and an update from the Peninsula Healthcare District. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, are there any questions of staff at this time on the work plan or the budget? Okay, seeing none. We will now open this item to public comment for item number 4. Angela?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did not receive anybody in chambers wishing to speak, and we do not have any hands raised for this item on Zoom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now close the public hearing for item 4 and open it to the commission for discussion or for motion. Anybody? Okay, we need a motion, and the recommendation is before us up there. And do we have a motion for item number 4?
Before making a motion, I did have
Okay.
one question that occurs to me, and forgive me because I am on the committee, and so I think as I'm seeing it now, I'm seeing it with fresh eyes for one reason or another. But as I'm reading about the point of the fire study being to evaluate the current and future provision of emergency medical services in the county to recommend actions to promote efficient and coordinated delivery of services to county residents. Efficient delivery of services seems to me maybe it immediately instills in me more of a sense of urgency than 24-25, especially given the storms we've just seen. And I was certainly having those discussions with Director Slocum in the last meeting we had, so maybe you have some thoughts or staff, if you have thoughts.
If I could, do the chair, certainly, when we looked at the concept of a countywide fire study and looking at also emergency medical services, we have looked at, I don't think there is a immediate need that has brought this to our attention. It has just been that we know that there are some ongoing issues, that this is a timely topic. But there is nothing that is immediately pressing that has brought this to our attention.
There's nothing that's telling you that if we were to have this study tomorrow, efficiency would be brought up 2 notches the day after tomorrow.
Correct. And there's nothing immediately that needs to be glaringly addressed to our knowledge.
I think I'm experiencing a sensitivity to making sure efficiency of our emergency services is top notch, but if we don't have a pressing complaint, thank you.
I did want to add is that I went to a LAFCo training session, statewide training session, and county LAFCO commissioners from other counties where they had catastrophic problems, and in that case it was fires, beyond just what I want to say the normal fire is they're finding that a lot of their arrangements that they had didn't assume that huge amount of effort. And so they really were encouraging all LAFCOs to take a look at this to see how what are those arrangements for those really catastrophic events? And so that learning came back here and said maybe we should look at that because they work well for the average emergencies that we have, but perhaps not these things that are coming on to us that we're not familiar. And this year, of course, we had flooding, which was in some areas quite bad, but in others, manageable. So that was sort of another discussion point for that.
And that's the thing, especially, we think of fire services in terms of fires, but oftentimes they serve as paramedics more regularly than firefighters, at least in my jurisdiction they do. And after that, ambulances are included in this. So that's why I was, especially because of these storms, thinking, oh, are we as efficient as we should be right now?
So that was it. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the budget and the work plan?
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Second? Is there a second? I'll second that. Okay. Angela, will you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Mueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Warback,
Yes.
Commissioner Slocum,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, Chair Draper.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Your motion passes.
Okay. We'll now move on to item 5, which is adoption of the revised LAFCO schedule of processing fees. Sophia?
Thank you. The Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act allows LAFCOs to establish a schedule of fees to process applications, and it also states that the fees shall not exceed the estimated reasonable cost of processing the application. San Mateo LAFCO fees are based on the application's level of complexity, staff hourly rates, and other service costs like rent and county attorney fees. On average, fees for minor and major annexations, detachments, and outside service agreements are proposed to be increased by 7.5%. Fees for other types of actions like consolidations, mergers, or dissolutions are proposed to remain at actual costs based on staff hourly rates. And our application fees are comparable to other Bay Area LAFCOs. The LAFCO fee schedule must be adopted by resolution at a notice public hearing, and the Commission adopted a practice 2 years ago, or a few years ago, to review fees every 2 years. The last schedule was updated in fiscal year 2021, and the Commission unanimously approved the draft LAFCO fee schedule at the March meeting, and public notices were sent to affected agencies and circulated in the San Mateo County Times, and LAFCO staff has not received any comments as of today. So the recommendation today is to approve by resolution the LAFCO fee schedule, and I do want to note that the resolution that was included in the agenda was incorrect, and you should have a copy of the correct resolution number 1305, I believe, in front of you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments by the commissioners?
Yeah.
You do? Yes, please, go ahead.
Can you tell us what that 7.5% actually is in real numbers? And was it considered when you were doing the budget?
The fee schedule is on page 45 of the agenda packet.
Okay.
So it varies depending on the actual application. So just generally across all of them, it's about on average 75%. So for annexation applications for the smallest area, that change is about $900. And for the larger annexation applications or detachments, it's about $3,000. The difference.
Okay, I don't actually understand what you're saying. Maybe the question was stated wrong. Does that mean, what is the net sum profit for the LAFCO, the operation of LAFCO?
We anticipate, so currently we in FY 22-23, we projected that we would receive about $30,000 in application fees.
Okay.
And the increases, we budgeted $35,000 for the next year.
And that is an increase over what we budgeted last year for fiscal years, because there is then the fee increase that we have taken into account, so that then with that increase in budgeted amount, that then reduces down the 1/3 apportionment
Okay,
accordingly.
thanks, Rob.
Sure.
I wanted to, and I asked this at the last meeting, but I felt like it was very helpful for me to know, and for any member of the public who might know, or maybe a refresher for a member of the board who may or may not find it useful. But the rate at which we recoup the actual amount of work we put in any one of these, if you could go over that briefly, because I found that 7.5 was really modest compared to what we recoup against actual costs.
Correct, and then that is on purpose, because we do try to have especially the annexations, when we're looking at encouraging areas that are developing to annex to districts or to agencies, that we do not want the fees to be a barrier to that process. So much like planning applications and planning building permits, where they're not recouping fees 100%, LAFCo does not recoup our fees 100%, nor does really any LAFCo. And so to encourage those proposals to come forward to the commission. Also, like many LAFCOs, our budget is not built around our fees. As Sophia had just mentioned, our budget is about over $800,000, and we're budgeting fees approximately $35,000. So the majority of our budget is still made of the 1/3 apportionment, very similar to almost every LAFCO in the state.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. We'll now open for public comment on item number 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did not receive any interest in the chambers to speak on this item, and we have no hands raised on Zoom either.
Okay, thank you. We'll now close the public hearing for item number 5, and we're open for discussion and motion by the commission. We have a motion. The recommendation is before us.
I'll move.
Second? Okay. Angela, if you call the roll, please.
Thank you. And that was a motion by Commissioner Mueller and second by Commissioner Warback. Commissioner Big Stick?
Aye.
Commissioner Martin?
Aye.
Commissioner Mueller?
Yes.
Commissioner Warback?
Yes.
Commissioner Slocum? Commissioner Michelson?
Yes.
Chair Draper?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Your motion passes.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to item number 6, which is a resolution authorizing an agreement with the County of San Mateo for staffing, legal counsel, office space, and supplies for fiscal year 23-24. Sophia will give a presentation.
Thank you. The San Mateo LAFCO annually adopts a contract with the County of San Mateo for staffing and supportive services, legal counsel, and office space and supplies. The budget that the commission just approved includes funds for that agreement for those services. Funds for outside auditing services and the reserve funds are not included in the county contract. So the recommendation, this is a pretty simple one. The recommendation today is for the commission to authorize by resolution the chair to execute the attached agreement with the County of San Mateo. Any questions?
I have a question. Is this the same contract basically that we've been using for?
Correct. Yes.
Yes,
Numbers and dates
okay.
have changed.
So it wouldn't be a surprise to cities or the special district who support this effort.
Correct.
All right. All right. Now we'll open to public comment for item number 6. Angela?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do not have any speaker slips for anyone wishing to speak on in the chambers for item 6, and we do not have any hands raised on Zoom. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll now close the public comment for item number 6, and we'll begin with discussion, if you have the commission, on this item, and a motion for adoption of the recommendation, which is before us and up on the screen.
I'll move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Can you call roll call, please, Angela?
Yes, and that was a motion by Commissioner Mueller and second by Commissioner Warback. Commissioner Big Stick?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Mueller, Commissioner Barback, Commissioner Slocum,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, Chair Draper.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Your motion passes.
Okay. Now we'll move on to item number 7, which is the Broadmoor Police Protection District. This is information only, and staff is going to make a a presentation first. And I've spoken to the chief before, and then he's going to give a presentation after we get done with the staff and any questions that might occur. And typically we have 3 minutes, but I've given the chief 15 minutes so that he can discuss and tell us what he wants to make sure that we know. So staff, if you would start with the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So at the commission meeting in March of 2023, the commission approved a final special study on the Broadmoor Police Protection District. And then as part of that approval, directed staff to request the district respond in writing with their agreement or disagreement with the key issues and recommendations identified in the special study, present an update regarding the district and the implementation of the study's recommendations and fiscal conditions at 90 days, 60 days, 6 months, and 12 months after the adoption of the report, and then present an informational item regarding the LAFCo initiation of dissolution, which is item number 8 on the agenda today. On March 16th, at the direction of the commission, LAFCo staff sent an email to the district to review the commission's request as described on the previous slide and provide a written response. Staff provided a template for the written response for the district. We received the template would allow the district to respond if they agreed or disagreed with the recommendation, how the district would implement the recommendation, and when the implementation of that recommendation would occur. We also made the district aware of the upcoming meetings, which will occur then on July 19th, September 20th, and March 20th of 2024. On May 10th, the district LAFCo staff received a written response regarding the special study from the district, and the response focused on several issues, including calls for service data, the district finances, financial reporting, and long-range planning. However, the district did not provide a comprehensive response to all the key issues and recommendations regarding the information about when the responsive actions will be implemented by the district. So we do not have the response matrix that was sent to us completed and sent back to LAFCo. I briefly will touch on, though, the points that the response letter does bring up and reference. One is that in the letter, the Broadmoor Police Protection District notes that the calls for service data, which was provided by the district in the special study, is incorrect, and therefore cost per service call, is lower than reported. With the exception of the correction to the Broadmoor area population from LAFCo's response that was corrected in the final report, staff did not receive any comments from the district regarding the inaccuracy of any data after multiple opportunities to review and provide feedback. So the district, in October of 2022, LAFCo submitted an administrative draft to the special study to the former Chief Melville for review and accuracy of the data, including calls for service. In that response that was received by LAFCo on November 8th, there were no comments from the district regarding the inaccuracy. And during public comment periods and at 3 hearings, there was no data brought to our attention that the information was incorrect. The new calls for service data that is referred to in the letter has not yet been submitted to LAFCo for our review. The calls for service was only one data point within the special study. However, LAFCo will review any new data and could amend the report if needed. As I had mentioned, however, though, we have not received the new data that is referenced in the letter. The district notes that it's aware of budget shortfalls and has taken steps to reduce overall costs. And the district states that some of the shortfalls are due to mismanagement and litigation. LAFCo's response is that the district has had significant budget deficits and a negative net position for several years. Other factors like increased pension liability and the use of fund balance to cover deficits contribute to the district's poor financial condition. The district should be reviewing increases to these areas, particularly fund balance, particularly pension liability and the use of those fund balance to address the deficits, especially as in past budget documents, the drawdown of fund balance was not noted, and in future financial documents should really highlight when fund balance is utilized to address deficits. The district notes that it intends to prepare quarterly updates regarding the district finances moving forward. However, a strategic plan as recommended in the LAFCo special study or long-term financial planning is not necessary. LAFCo's response is that the district has had several years of unbalanced budgets and budget deficits, and that in light of that, long-term financial planning is warranted. This could certainly help the board engage in the strategic planning session, which will help prioritize goals and look at how that could fit within the budget framework of the district, and allow the public to participate in the plan for the district's future. The district also contends that the study unfairly compares the police protection district to two neighboring cities, the city of Daly City and the town of Colma, and an unincorporated area, County Service Area 1, for police service costs and level of service. LAFCo routinely compares similar services to providers to each other in MSRs and special studies, and staff views the comparison as appropriate. The comparison between the two cities was limited to the budgets of their respective police departments and services. For County Service Area 1, the budgeted review was limited to the contract with the Sheriff's Office. In areas where there are noticeable differences in services or finances between those two agencies and BPPD, the study could be used as a way to focus on for the district to become more efficient or explore ways to share services with other agencies. And if there are large differences between the district and other service providers, the district should examine why those differences exist and look for ways to address them. Regarding next steps, there'll be future updates as directed by the commission at the July 19th meeting, the September 20th meeting, and then the March 20th meeting 2024. There'll be continued conversations with the county sheriff's office, and the city of Daly City, and there'll be updates from the county controller's office. LAFCo staff has been in contact with the county controller's office to understand requirements regarding participation in what is known as the San Mateo County Pooled Investment Fund and the district's fund status. The district policy, investment policy that the county has for the controller's office is that there is a minimum balance of $250,000 that's kept in those funds, and the controller's office will be updating LAFCo to any impacts to that fund and whether the district will have any continued fund balance to meet that requirements. We have received written correspondence, and Angela may mention this as well. There's one letter on your dais that was printed out recently, but there's also been approximately 44 letters that have been submitted by residents within the Broadmoor Police Protection Area in response to this particular item. And those have been posted on the website and emailed to the commission. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Commission, if we have any questions of staff, and I say questions, not comments at this moment, but questions.
Questions?
Yes, I'll start down at the end.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question is probably for Mr. Bartoli. Could you just refresh my memory on what the July 19th, September 20th, and March 20th, 24 updates to the commission will represent?
Certainly. And so that will be LAFCO staff updates to the commission. We will be looking at any new financial information that the district has, or if there's been conversations with the district and LAFCO about, again, the implementation of any of those recommendations and what the timing is. Hopefully at the July meeting, as the district will probably need to adopt a budget in the near future for its new fiscal year, we'll hopefully have an update regarding the new adopted budget for BPPD. And in September and in March, certainly any other correspondence and updates, whether it be audits or any other information that we have to bring to the commission, including, like I said, any implementation of those recommendations from the special study.
Commissioner Martin, do you have any questions?
kind of do. Is there a third source available to obtain the question data? You know, the population and how many calls there were in that sort
Yeah,
of
so
stuff?
the population data has been correct. So we did actually, so that was a correction that was in the final report.
Yeah.
Regarding the calls for service, yes, there is. So once we have the data from the district, we can verify that with San Mateo County Public Safety Communications because they do the dispatching for the district. So we'll be able to verify that data once it is submitted to us.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bixico.
Thank you. There was, in one of the letters to us, a great deal of questioning as to the validity of the study that was done. Should we begin dissolution procedures? Would there be more studying with an opportunity to update the data in our reports?
So to the question of new data for the special study, again, we can review that and we can, if there was just one data set, we can look to see if we need to amend the special study, we could bring that back to the commission. In the concept of if there is a dissolution application moving forward, the data, if there's different data that's being referenced, that could be, we would need to review that. But if it's just the calls for service and the cost then, and that in one table that we reference, that may not be referenced in a dissolution application because that was really just a comparison within the special study. But certainly something that if we have new data, we could bring back to the commission if the commission wants to amend the special study with a revised table.
Thank you very much.
I have a related question, and that is, if I read the report right, if LAFCo initiates dissolution, which we've not done and not even asked you to go down that path, there has to be an MSR, a municipal service review, within the last 5 years. Did I read that correctly? Because if there is, there'd be a lot more data. We'd have to do that first, and that would probably alter our work plan if we did that. So, which we have not initiated. It's not on our work plan, just the information item. So there'd be other data in that too. So that would, did I read the report right? Because that's our next item.
That is the next item, and if that's under SB 938 with
Okay.
that requirement for the 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Harvey, do you have any questions at this time? No. Okay, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, seeing the new calls for service number certainly changes the math. Is there a breakdown in types of calls, i.e., domestic violence versus dog barking? I mean, are they broken down into types? I mean, excessive dog barking calls could certainly dilute the service number. So comparable to the surrounding agencies, it would be, so we're comparing apples to apples and types of calls, so we're not artificially diluting the cost per service call.
I haven't seen the new calls for service from Broadmoor, but we have referenced data from Daly City and from County Service Area 1 and the town of Colma, and they do have that breakdown.
Okay.
So hopefully we will have the Broadmoor data set also have that breakdown, so we could, if we bring it back to the commission, we could amend the table and then add that information about what that breakdown is specific, if that is
Yeah, it would make
direction from the
for a
commission.
much more fair comparison. Thank you.
Fine. You have any questions? All right. All right, now we're going to open the public hearing, and as I mentioned earlier, welcome, and welcome to anybody else who wants to speak on this item. And I'm going to say thank you for everybody who wrote us. I really appreciate all those comments. But we're going to give you 15 minutes, and then we're going to follow with questions if there's any.
Thank you, Commissioner. First of all, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, members, Director Bartoli, members of the staff, and most importantly, members of the public. My name is Mike Connolly. I am the Chief of Police and Special District Manager for Broadmoor Police Department. Before I start addressing some of the issues that I found, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, because I think it's important to know. I've spent 38 years in law enforcement, 30 years of which was in the San Francisco Police Department. The last 13 of those years have been in executive and management leadership positions. And so I've conducted a number of studies in my senior leadership positions and presented to not only the Police Commission of San Francisco, but to the Board of Supervisors for San Francisco. And I think everybody knows what kind of theater occurs in San Francisco. So I'm well versed in presenting empirical data, because if it wasn't validated, it means nothing. And if my data in those presentations was invalid and was determined to be invalid, then my chief and myself lose our credibility. We lose everything, because proper data and validated data is our word. It's part of our bond. And so after the March 15th meeting, in which you approved the draft report, or the report in itself, we had a bit of a discussion about what the next steps would be. And we had some communication issues here through the medium, because I was on a Zoom call and it had to be interpreted. So we didn't have a really, what I would say, a beneficial communication dialogue. But you had my word, my bond, that I would move forward, respond to the study, respond to the matrix that was provided to me on March 16th, and I would come back to this dais and report out. That called for me to start looking deeply into this report. Director Bartoli presented to the Broadmoor Police Commission on the 10th of January. I did not come into office until after that date. I did hear that report as a private citizen, and then the following week, Director Bartoli brought this exact report to the Broadmoor Property Owners Association, the residents. And we all understood that at the time, and I challenged Director Bartoli on some of the issues at that time, cost of crime, and he went back and he adjusted those the issues that I brought to him, and it was in the PowerPoint that you last saw. However, on March 16th, I started really digging into this report, and I was shocked. I'm frankly very shocked. The calls for service is our reach out to the community. It's our response to and our proactive police work, if you will, service to the community. And it listed only 750 calls for service. And so right immediately, my question became, well, where did this data come from? What was the source? What was the source data? And so I exchanged emails with Director Bartoli and asked him, what is your source of the data? Because it's not listed. And it said simply that they had retrieved information from the Broadmoor Police Department, and that's where they got that information. And so I searched through the department. I said, who provided this information? Now, I have to make a notation here. Former Chief Melville was gone. He left the department from November 18th on. So whatever correspondence had transcribed between this commission, this director, and Director Melville, or excuse me, Chief Melville, was never disseminated to anybody else in the department. So when I started delving into this report, it was my first time looking at it through objective eyes. When we started talking about calls for service, this report, and I know you're looking at the time, and I request that you indulge me, because I'm not only approaching you as a chief of police, as a district special manager, I'm approaching you as a resident of 30 years of Broadmoor. And I'm pretty sure nobody on this dais lives in the North County. So I'm representing law enforcement and the residents, because it's important. As I looked at this data, it became apparent to me that LAFCo, whoever conducted the information study with Chief Melville, and I can't speak for the private administration, there was a flaw, a fatal flaw, on that basis alone. However, on that basis of that information, the report was submitted to the police commission and submitted to the public. That painted a picture that Broadmoor residents were paying $3,500 for calls for service. Now, couple that, making us the highest, couple that with the information that we do have budget problems. There's no two ways about it. In our economy right now, the government is looking at a shutdown. The state of California is anywhere between 19 billion and 31 billion dollars in debt. We don't even know what San Mateo County in itself looks like, and yet we're looking at Broadmoor, right? So we know we have problems just like every other municipality has. And couple that with the fact that time after time, we've had areas annexed, which would have contributed to our commercial base. I'm shocked we're even having this conversation, because we've been able to survive. Having said that, the tone of this report paints a catastrophic picture of the Broadmoor Police Department, and that we cannot financially maintain our balance, and we cannot provide or keep up with our level of service. And I submit to you that we can. But this report also goes into a little more factual information. We were compared to Daly City, Coleman, and the Sheriff's Department. Daly City Police Department has a $48 million budget. In the report, I think it's on page 4, it says they have 111 officers compared to our 9 or 10. Well, that's factually incorrect as well, because they only have 88 officers, and that's from the chief on down. Their patrol force consists of 66 officers. That's 25 officers below their standard. If we're even considering dumping another 8,200 calls per service into the Daly City area, right, and adding another 7,200, which I contend would be more like 8,500 people into their area, and they can't fill those 25 spots now, and they're having a hard time projecting how to fill those spots, who is going to suffer? I can tell you that. I'm going to suffer as a resident. All the people that live in Broadmoor are going to suffer. But not only that, we talk about calls for cost per service, or cost per service call. We are the lowest at 328. Daly City is at 900 or 800, I believe it's $840 per call per service. You're going to take away the lowest call per service and take away the ability, and then double and a half, two and a half times the cost, and project that onto Broadmoor residents. That makes 0 cents, 0 cents, and get a lesser level of service. We are providing a service right now. We don't have complaints. Your 44 comments that came on the heels of the report, only 2 of them are negative. The other 42 are positive. How does that even make sense? And so the outreach, some people watch, some people don't. But Broadmoor wants to stay with us, and we are providing a high level of service. You talk about quantitative and qualitative service, right? Well, we know what the hard numbers are. We know that we responded to 8,200 calls, and that's in 2021, which, oddly enough, our years, when we looked at our data, everybody else's year was 2022. We were the only 2021 comparison. So you're comparing our 2021 numbers to everybody else's 2022 numbers. I don't understand that. And there was never an explanation for that. But going back to quantitative and qualitative, and give me a second. We know the numbers of calls per service. What that doesn't include is all the contacts, right, with our residents, and all the incident reports that are generated, and all the investigations that are generated for Broadmoor, right? We also, in those 8,200, we also are supporting Daly City and Colma, right? Because we all have less than adequate staffing. So we do share a cost, which was one of the matrix questions. We share backing up each other. If we come across an incident in Daly City, we will help them. If they call for help, we go to them, and likewise, they come to us. Okay. Having talked about that, the qualitative. Broadmoor spends time in their neighborhood. We don't have the volume of calls that Daly City has. We have 57,000 calls for service by Daly City and a population of 104,000. Give or take that number as well, right? That's almost 1 call per officer in Daly City, but we know that's not the reality of it. We know because they're busy all the time. That's why they call us. In Broadmoor, we have the time to spend quality time with our neighbors, with our people, the people we respond to. We have quality time to follow up on investigations. We have quality time in our exchange as a community, not as a police force coming in to tell people what not to do. It's engaging our community and how we can solve problems together. You are not going to have the ability to have Daly City and or the Sheriff's Department come in and be able to spend that amount of time there because the Sheriff's Department is down too. And Mr. Bartoli shows in 2018, his statistic here is before 2019, Broadmoor had to be augmented by the Sheriff's Department. Well, hearing that alone, you would think, oh, the Sheriff's Department's been there the whole time, right? Because Broadmoor couldn't handle it. The truth of that statement is that in 2018, from January to June, we had 1 sheriff's deputy augment the Broadmoor Police Department. And the cost for that for us was significantly higher than our own officers because we had to pay the administrative fees, we had to pay the fuel, we had to pay the car cost. That was only for 6 months, and it hasn't happened since, and it didn't happen before. So that's a disingenuous statement. And yet, all this information that I'm bringing to you right now was presented to the public. It was false. It was blatantly false. I don't know, and I can't speak to what the prior administration information was provided. But I can tell you that my research, and I did do research, is accurate. When we talk about staffing, in 2021, we dissolved our longstanding reserve officer program. Before that was, so the 8,200 calls of service I'm talking about, that was already impacted by our loss of reserve officers. We had approximately 13 reserve officers. We dissolved the program. I am bringing that program back because approximately 2,000 calls were lost, right? So we would have 2,000 calls more if we had a reserve program back because that's what they contribute to the community. You can't translate proactive police work into dollars. It's very difficult to do that. It's just like you cannot put a true cost of crime on a statistic. As you look at dots on a map of crime dots, every one of those people is a person. It's not just statistics. So I know from having done this very same presentation to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors that everybody has a name, and Broadmoor caters to them. That's what we do. That's what we're good at. That's why we're in our 75th year of policing. Yes, we've had challenges, but we've always come through. Our motto is dedicated to service, and that's for a reason, because we believe in that, and we are providing that. And so this report, in my mind's eye, is frankly disappointing and disingenuous. I've already spoken to you about the calls for service, some of the other data that's questionable. I haven't had the opportunity to actually delve into our budget issues. I know that the budget issues as they're laid here most likely came from our website or just the posted budgets. I don't know what the actuals are from those years. So when we talk about expenditures and being cost overruns and unbalanced budgets, I can tell you what that primarily is. It's insurance cost and it's our litigation costs, right? Paying for our attorneys. Yes, we've had unbalanced budgets. And yes, we have an investigation with CalPERS. It says we are contending with that. The reality of that is CalPERS is investigating administratively and criminally the actions of previous administrations. And I won't go into the details of that because the litigation is ongoing and open, as well as the criminal investigations. That is long before this report was adopted. However, it paints a picture. Those corrections have been readily adjusted, but we don't have control over those aspects. As the Broadmoor Police Department, we are sitting on the bus. We're not driving the bus as far as the criminal and administrative issues with CalPERS are ongoing. That's an important thing to note here because we are working with CalPERS to remedy the problems, not to create them. And when we start talking about unfunded liabilities and rising costs for retirees, that's true. But that's also true across the state of California. It's not a Broadmoor issue alone.
Chief, you have 30 seconds.
Sorry?
You have 30 seconds left of the 15
30
minutes.
seconds. Thank you for letting me know that. Folks, I indulge you for more time. Seriously, I'm not done.
Well, how long do you think that you had said that you could do it in 15, and so we're coming up to 15?
I asked for 20 originally, and I compromised at 15.
All right, you have 5 more minutes, but please be short. And get to the point.
Get to the point. The point is there's a move by this board that has already adopted a report, and you want to move towards dissolution. I plead with you to go back to that report, retract that report as it is. I will work with Director Patoli to get the proper information, to create the proper picture that is truth. Because as it is, this report, it's unfair. It's unfair and it's untrue. It's not factual. In fact, it's flawed with bad facts. And yet the people that he presented to don't know that. The only people that know that are people that are looking at it like myself and our attorney and our board. How can that be proper to move forward with any type of dissolution when the facts of this report are flawed. Now, Director Bartoli and I have had some mild discussions about this, and he stands by his work, as he should. I'm telling you right now, I can't. This is not what the paper is written on. Now, if I have to do this report myself, I will do a report, and a lot of this will be countered. And if I have to spend the next 4 months, approximately how long it took to do this report, then that's what I'm going to do to show to my elected board and refute this. And my elected board is who I answer to. They are elected. And those people were elected by the people of Broadmoor. Folks, they didn't vote for you. They voted for them. And that's who my boss is. And that's who I owe the proper answers to. I'm sorry if this board has already made a decision to move forward dissolution, but I hope you're not doing it on these facts. I hope you have better facts than these.
I want to break in here because we have not made any recommendation on dissolution. It was one option in terms of many options, so I just want to make sure that that is corrected. And as you heard me state earlier, if we do that, we have other reports, it's called an MSR, that has to be done, which will also involve a lot of data. So it would be inaccurate for anybody who's listening or for yourself to state that we have made that decision, because that is not the case. And I wanted to jump in right here because
Sure, before you jump in, and with all due
I
respect-
just said that was an option, but we have not taken that action.
Okay, but this board did approve the report on March 15th.
As a report
Action.
of information, we did.
That's correct.
And
You
one of,
approved the report that is factually flawed. So moving forward on anything that you approved, that would kind of make you complicit in some questionable government practices. I think that's something that
we
it's an opinion.
disagree.
It's an opinion.
Continue. That is your opinion, and
It is,
and
but
it is your opinion.
It is, and I accept that. Board, I've made my position fairly clear, and it's not just my position, it's the position of the Board of Police Commissioners. We've been in discussions with Supervisor Canepa's office and staff about how to remedy the budget issues. Now, I have 2 minutes left. We know we have budget problems. We are reworking our insurance to bring it down to lower. We are working with our litigators. We have absolutely zero control with that, but we are working with them. I can't tell you how that litigation is going to go. I have no idea. And we know litigation is expensive. Part of that litigation was forced on us. Other parts of it were retaliatory measures by former employees who are involved. There's a bit of a scorched earth group, if you will, that's coming after Broadmoor to do exactly what this board has to look at in terms of, is Broadmoor going to survive? Well, they know the answer, that if they sue us enough and they keep bringing the litigation upon us, that's a hard problem. We have never asked the county for money. I know what my time is, I'm seeing it. We have never asked the county for money. There are ways to mitigate costs from the county, but that's not what this meeting is about. I'm giving you an update on where Broadmoor is, and I implore you to either suspend the adopted report or retract it, or open it back up so we can get the accurate information out. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, and thank you. At this time, again, not comments, but are there any questions of the speaker before we move on to the other speakers? Commissioner Bigstick.
Thank you, and it wasn't in the report that I saw. Did you actually have a written response to the matrix that was provided?
It is when I started working with the matrix. So the first answer is no, and I don't know if you want me to elaborate on that or not.
I'll need elaboration. Thank you.
So no.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I'm assuming that we have some speakers. Can you advise how many we have?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 2 members of the public wishing to speak in chambers. And if anyone is interested in speaking on Zoom, now would be the time to raise your virtual hand. As of right now, they're queuing up. So there's about 4 virtual hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, so let's give each person the normal amount of time as a speaker to speak.
So I will first call on members of the public wishing to speak in chambers. And I will start by calling on Christine Taliva'a Aguirre from the Broadmoor Property Owners Association.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you very much for having me. I had spoken at the last meeting, the one that was in March, but I know there were some communication problems. So that's why I'm here today. The Broadmoor Property Owners Association, I'm the president, and my board and other members of the community, we are working with Chief Mike. We will continue to work with him to get all of the questions answered, anything that we can do. We totally support the Broadmoor Police Department, with the exception of those 2 emails. And that's 1,200 homes that are in Broadmoor. I know because I've sent out the grapevine. And so you figure we have a lot of people there, and we are supporting the police department. We do not want it taken away from us. We have a lot of seniors in our area. Every time there's something that needs to be taken care of, Broadmoor Police is there. If I have a problem, I know I can call the non-emergency line. I know I can call Chief Mike. I can call any of the other officers who freely give out their cell phone numbers to any of the public. And I know that I can call them and they can help. Excuse me, about the community. The police department shows up at all of the community events. I know, because I've been there, I've seen them. And they're out there showing positive inspiration to all of the children. We had an Easter egg hunt. We had at least 150 children from the neighborhood and the neighboring school. And the police were out there, and the fire department was out there, and they're showing positivity. Whereas in the news, I don't hear any of that for a lot of the police departments. But our Broadmoor Police Department, they do that so that we can cut down on any of the crime or any of the service calls that we need to have. So please do not get rid of our police department. And as a matter of fact, the email that you have in front of you, that was authored by my husband. You'll see my name at the top of the email that I forwarded it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will next call on Jeff Bolton from Colma Fire Department.
Members of the commission, chairman, I appreciate being here. One of the rules of the fire department is we don't follow police chiefs when they speak because it changes all the dynamics in the room. But quickly, I just wanted to introduce myself to you. I know that we're not a spoken part of the report. However, we share public safety responsibilities with Broadmoor Police in their part of their community, and then we also have the town of Colma that we respond to. With the information that I received today, and I want to thank Director Bartoli, he got a hold of me this morning. We spoke a little bit. My concern was that there are effects to other agencies when things like this are happening. And I wanted to make sure that was being attended to. Director Bartoli absolutely says that's the case. So when we get to there, I wanted to make sure you know who I was. I've been up there my entire adult life. Been in these chambers before as well, as many of you know. So I do appreciate that and all of that. I wanted to say that, and without a doubt, we've been with the Broadmoor Police as long as they've been around, and almost as long as the fire district's a little bit longer. But I do appreciate the time, and just want to say hi. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, that is the last public member wishing to speak in chambers. And earlier, as Executive Director Bartoli noted, we did receive 43 letters that were posted to the website and distributed to the commissioners. So I will now go ahead and call on the members on Zoom. I will first call on Andrea Hall, followed by Will Eaton. Ms. Hall?
Thank you so much. I don't really have much to add beyond my written comments that I supplied to LAFCo. I'd just like to thank you again for looking into this. I also want to emphasize that this isn't a referendum on whether or not we like our police commissioner, although I would note that we have not voted him in at this point. Nothing that Chief Connolly said today has improved my confidence in the department's commitment to improving its transparency or fiscal solvency. It's had 6 months to respond to the draft report. I personally find it alarming that they can't locate their prior correspondence with Mr. Bartoli about supplying data for the draft report. They're a public agency. They're required to adhere to the Public Records Act. Any member of the public should be able to request those records. Quite frankly, everything that's been said today, I find disturbing, and I would ask you to continue to try to hold the Broadmoor Police Department to account. I'd like to see the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. I will now call on William Eaton, followed by Anna Marie. Mr. Eaton?
Hi, thanks for having me. I want to just comment that as a Broadmoor resident, the team is regularly visible as a component of the neighborhood, and that I would be concerned how changes to the organization could impact resource allocations and availability within the neighborhood, and could potentially extend response times for Broadmoor residents. Thank you, and I see my time.
Thank you, Mr. Eaton. I will now call on Anna Marie, followed by the last virtual hand, which will be Mike Abuyagi. Anna Marie, please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to make a comment that it's a bit concerning that the commission issued a report with false data. So that was very concerning. And I do understand that the previous police chief did not respond to inquiries in a timely manner. And I don't feel that the community should be held account, negatively due to that fact. Since Chief Connolly has come into the position, he's doing his best to provide the accurate data to support keeping the Broadmoor Police Protection Department. And I just want to say that my family's lived in Broadmoor since 1964. And one of the main reasons for us staying here so long is that we feel safe and protected by our Broadmoor Police Protection Department. I feel that they continue to do an excellent job. They're always there to protect us by, enforcing law, preventing criminal behavior. They're very responsive when homeowners call for assistance. And as Christine mentioned earlier, they're always willing to participate in community events. They attend our monthly homeowners association meetings to provide updates and to promote awareness within our community. We feel, myself and my neighbors feel that the Broadmoor Police Department offers, or they're truly part of our community, and not having their protection would be a huge loss to our community. I can also state that I can compare them to my other property that I have in another location in another county. Sometimes I call, they don't show up, or they show up hours later when there's an incident. And that doesn't make me comfortable. And I do spend the majority of my time here now in Broadmoor because it's much more safe. And I feel that the community works together to get things done. So thank you.
Thank you. I will now call on Mike Abuyagi, and we do have another hand from Mr. David Smith. So Mr. Abuyagi, please proceed.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to start off by saying if we lose the Broadmoor Police Department, it will be a huge loss for Broadmoor. It will be a huge loss for that area and that community. I'm a longtime resident and a property owner. I grew up there my whole life. My family grew up there. We feel like Broadmoor Police is part of the community, and by losing this department, it's going to turn us into a big city. It's going to be like San Francisco. It's going to be like a part of Daly City where you don't know when you're going to get a response. I work in San Francisco. I see how it is when I call the police. The police, you call 911, you're lucky to get a police to come out. Broadmoor, you call them, they come out. You see them, they're visible, they make their presence. They're in the community, they've always been in that community. They've always kept a close eye on who's coming in and who's leaving. And it makes the area safe and welcoming. And it makes us as residents, and makes the residents that live there and the children that go to the schools in the area safe. We don't have to worry about all the big events that happen in the large cities, even though we do live in an area which is considered a large city, but it doesn't feel like it because the Broadmoor Police Department keeps it tight and safe and keeps us all just feeling good about where we live. And I would probably do a lot of fact checking on whatever report you guys are reading, because I really feel this would be a huge loss if we do lose the Broadmoor Police Department. And thank you for your time, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate the Broadmoor Police Department, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now call on David Smith, followed by Art Tebow, and this is just a call for anybody else that wishes to speak to please raise your virtual hand now. Mr. Smith, go ahead.
You can hear me now. All right. I'm a former president of the Broadmoor Property Owners Association and still currently a board member. And in the 5 years I've been associated with the association, we have had a lot of community support for the police. Whatever issues have come up, the public comes out to support them. And we voted in a parcel tax quite a few years ago, and we're aware that that tax gets increased by the commissioners that we vote in order to try and balance the budget, or at least give from our taxes the support to that police department. Now, I was able to write a written response to LAFCo back in January, and there I had some questions about the continuation of the parcel tax, because in January, 2 of the LAFCo members were ready to pull the trigger on dissolution at that meeting if they'd had the power to do it. So I really think the police department is worth it, that we have the people to support them and to help them to implement whatever changes need to be made. And that parcel tax needs to be used to support the police department that we voted on. So I will implore you, let the residents decide the future. In the meantime, I'm glad to hear that you haven't taken any action toward dissolution, but if you do, there will be folks who say, no way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will now call on Art Tebow, followed by Mary Ann. Please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Alba Rosales Tebow. Thank you, Commission, for an opportunity to speak. I've been a resident in Broadmoor since my parents bought their home in 1977. When I chose to start a family and find a place to live with and grow, have my children grow up, we chose Broadmoor because of its safety, because of the aspect of knowing one another, which most definitely includes the police department. I have to say, officers may not know me who I am by name, but they definitely know who I am because I'm out there walking by myself, walking with my family, walking with my dog. They definitely know me as a lady with the Labradoodle out there in Broadmoor. It would be a shame, in my opinion, to lose our police department. I have had the benefit of seeing them in action, in good and in not good for some of our community members' situation. I just do implore that perhaps now that you are aware of the residents' concerns, I think we are becoming more and more aware of what is going on and expressing our opinions, that you really take all this into consideration. I did hear what you said, Madam Chairwoman, that no decision has been made, and that did make me feel a little bit better. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Tebow. So we have 3 virtual hands raised on Zoom. I will call on Mary Ann, followed by Sandy Arnott. Mary Ann?
Yes, I am a resident of Broadmoor, and I am a senior, and it gives me a great sense of well-being to know that if I pick up the phone I will have the police at my door very, very quickly. Please keep our police department and keep Broadmoor so very safe. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now call on Sandy Arnott, followed by Lee Whitsitt.
Hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sandy Arnott. I'm the treasurer tax collector. I'm a Broadmoor resident of 48 years, and I'm also a past board member of the Broadmoor Property Owners Association. I'm a little concerned to hear about the inaccuracies of the LAFCo report as presented from Mike Connolly, and my request would be that Mike be allowed to provide updated and accurate information to this committee for consideration. I support the Broadmoor Police Department wholeheartedly. They are very, very involved in the community, and I would really, really hate to see them disbanded. I hope that they do have an opportunity to work on their finances, because I do know that that is a huge issue for them. But beside that, I do support them wholeheartedly, and I hope that you will do the same. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So our last virtual hand raised is from Lee Whitsitt.
Hi, my name's Lee Whitsitt, and I am a 20-year resident of Broadmoor, and I have lived there a long time and have seen and had many interactions with Broadmoor Police Department, and it would just be a crying shame to see them be disillusioned, especially over a possible previous administration that the current chief is now trying to fix. It really would be a shame. My son has also grown up in Broadmoor and has attended many events with Colma and Broadmoor Police Department, as well as Colma Fire Department. And it's a great community in which everybody enjoys. And it would just be a real shame to see Broadmoor go. And I really would like to see the numbers be corrected and have the new chief be able to try and make sense of all this and turn it all around so Broadmoor can continue to serve the community in which I know that they love to serve. Thank you very much. I appreciate allowing me to speak.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Chair, we have no further hands raised for this item.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public part of this, and we're going to come back for comments to the by the commission. And this is an information item, so we're not going to be taking any action today. And I'm going to take the prerogative of making the first comments, and then I'll start down here and go this way. And I wanted to say that I've read all the materials and I've heard all the people who spoke today. And again, I want to thank everyone who's participated in this. And I really thought a lot about Broadmoor. And when I think about it, I think of the issues in 3 different categories: financial, operational, and governance. And by far, for me, the biggest problem is the financial issues. And nobody has said that Broadmoor doesn't have financial issues. There are major financial issues, and it's been going on for a while, so it's not like it just happened. And if these financial issues are not corrected now and have a strong position into the future, Broadmoor runs a risk of going bankrupt based on the information that I have. And then the governance issues, which many speakers have talked about, the options then may be ones you don't like. So I really think the leadership of Broadmoor has to focus on a balanced budget now and a strong financial plan for the future. I really thought that Broadmoor's current request, clarification that they responded to was really a non-response, and it also threw other issues in, I think, to divert away from the financial problem, because what we heard, sorry, Chief, was mostly about other stuff, not the finances. And to me, the biggest issue is the finances. And what I thought the response was said, people like us, so you shouldn't say bad things about us. And that's what I got out of the gist of the response. And my recommendation to the Broadmoor leadership is pass a balanced budget. Your constituents want it. And I think, gosh darn, I want it too. And I want you to know that I'm the public member. So I'm not a city, I'm not representing the county or a special district, but I have worked in all three. So I do have experience with that. One of the roles that I had was I was an economic development director. And I know a lot about zoning for dollars and other things like that. And I was a planning director for cities and the county of Santa Clara. And I can tell you that Broadmoor doesn't, well, doesn't get a sales tax, so you're not going to, that won't happen. You also, the other thing that special districts and cities and counties do is use their assets to raise money, and you don't have those to get that. And the property tax, the formula is set. And so I don't see other jurisdictions saying, oh, sure, we'll readjust it and giving special districts more money. And I know through my experience that even if there is substantial economic development in the future, it takes time for that to come back to the cities and the county. And therefore, the budget needs to be looked at right now. And to the citizens who wrote and spoke about their love for this special district, I believe you. I believe you. But I'm going to recommend that you turn all of your active, your enthusiasm into working with the leadership of your special district to find a balanced budget. That's what you have to work on. And to create a financial plan so that you can stay in existence, because that's what you want. And whether you want to spend a whole bunch of money or a little money on a response, that's your business as a community. But you have to be able to be in existence to be able to do that. So that's what I really recommend to the leadership and to the community is get the financial house in order now and for the future. And I really would support our current path to keep looking at this, because I think it is an important problem for our community that we keep tabs on it. So those are my comments. And as I said, I'll turn it back to my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the comments today from Chief and also from the public. It is striking to me that the matrix still isn't filled out. That was a task that we really want so that we can actually hear the contention in a written format between the district, and if one exists between LAFCo, to say these are what the facts, this is what is alleged. Do you agree with them or not in a written format? And the reason why that's important is so we can, rather than have a lot of verbal debate back and forth and things get lost, be able to read it. And more importantly, from a transparency standpoint, so the residents of Broadmoor can read it and understand it. And that's what we really are trying to accomplish with that. And I'm looking forward to seeing that matrix filled out. And I agree, the one point of contention factually is that a number changed in the number of calls, and we heard that loud and clear. But there wasn't an assertion that that number wasn't provided by the department or by the district. It was just simply, we can't find where it came from. We don't know if Mr. Melville provided it or not. We just don't know where it came from. Candidly, I think the caller had a point. It's hard to accept that we don't know whether or not. Well, on our side, we believe we got that from the chief, and so it's hard to accept that there isn't any record of that within the department or how that calculation was made by Chief Melville. But regardless, I understand now that you're saying there's a different number. But that actually gives me pause, too, because if the number is different and there's all those calls taking place to Daly City and everywhere else, and you have these financial issues, my question would be, why are you providing all that service out of your district for taxpayers who aren't paying for it? Because you have some serious financial issues. And that goes really, we're doing some research. There is a county policy Because what I'm really concerned about is obviously Broadmoor and the Broadmoor taxpayer, but also taxpayers outside of Broadmoor from the other special districts. Because what happens is your funds are in a county pool. And that county pool, if you were to go bankrupt or overdraw on, that would come, other taxpayers would be footing the bill for your district. And that, so I did some research into that, and as it turns out, there is a county policy that if your district balance falls below $250,000, there's a requirement that you be pulled out of the county pool. And in the past, it's gone back and forth with Broadmoor. But my understanding is that's going to be strictly applied to Broadmoor. And so what I would say to LAFCo, to my colleagues, is I really would like to send a letter to the controller's office affirming the treasurer and the controller's office affirming the county policy with respect to special districts, not just Broadmoor, but special districts, noting that we support the $250,000 threshold, which is county policy, and that if someone falls below it, that they be pulled out of the district pool so that we don't cause risk to other special districts. And that we note in that letter the discrepancy that we have right now between LAFCo and Broadmoor and the audits, and that we're supportive of it to protect special interests and taxpayers throughout the county. I also would note that I think it's important that that LAFCo indicate we don't believe it's in the county's best interest to provide you with a backstop if you default. So I see you shaking your head, you don't want it, and that's fine, but we're right now in the precarious position that the district's in financially, which has really caused this audit. I think it's really important and incumbent on us to be transparent with the residents in the district that ultimately, if you want the level of service that you all enjoy, you're going to end up having to pay for it. And what LAFCo really is doing is trying to be transparent with residents as to how severe the financial condition is. And then the matrix is to inform residents how severe some of the management issues have been in the past so that people can understand that. And so ultimately, it will fall on the residents in the district to raise the fund through taxes at a very tough economic time to save that district if it so chooses. But we want to make sure we provide all of that information because ultimately, whether or not we dissolve or whether or not we take these actions today, it will be left to a vote of the district, whether the residents, whether or not they want to try to keep it. And so I really, where I sort of stand on this right now is I want them pulled at the 250 threshold once it drops below. And then from everything that we've seen, it looks like you're going to drop below the 250. At that point, Broadmoor's pulled out of the pool, and you'll be left to have a discussion with the residents about what your financial condition is, what your financial condition will be going forward, and that we come back within a set period, that my colleagues, whatever you would think would be right, but that we continue to ask for this matrix to be filled out so that we can share that information transparently with the residents. And if we, at that juncture, whether it be 6 months or 3 months or whatever everyone thinks is appropriate, if it's still not filled out, that we provide that information continuing to the residents. Why isn't it being filled out? Why can't we share transparently with the residents what the issues are here and what the response is?
Thank you. First, I'd like to start with absolutely support the comments from the two prior speakers. I'd like to also build upon that a little bit. I know what it's like to be raised in a small community, born and raised in Half Moon Bay. My childhood friend, dating back to kindergarten, his dad was the chief of police. So I know what it's like to grow up in a community where we know our police, where we know the chief, and we know the deputies or the officers that serve underneath him. So I understand the value of community policing. Half Moon Bay went through a change not so long ago, and I can't say that the response times have diminished. I can't say the level of service has diminished. So I understand that while it is nice to have a community police force, times change, economies of scale come into play, and the level of service does not degrade. So I understand the passion of the speakers who reside in Broadmoor. You have my sympathy, but I think we need to look at other issues. And certainly the biggest issue here is the financial issue. You know, I sit on a water board. You know, we get our ERAF money every year. You know, we're pleasantly surprised when we receive it, but this year we nearly lost it. And I think with the deficits that the chief alluded to, that from the state or federal level all the way down, we may not get our ERAF. We may not be able to budget a ERAF every year. That's of serious concern. I know pension liability, that's another concern. So my concerns are, like the speakers before me, are financial. And while it's nice to have a community police force, we need to make sure that they're financially viable. And right now, we're not sure. I would like to see more data. I would certainly, like the others before me have alluded to, I can't believe we're sitting here with an empty matrix. My God, if we really wanted to rescue this police force, take some time, fill the matrix out. You know, it's like homework in school. We don't really like doing it, but the teacher wants to see it on Monday. And it wasn't done. So I'm really, really disappointed there. And I'll stop there because I know we have a few other speakers. Thank you.
Commissioner Rubik.
If you look at the report, you'll see that this financial issue is not something new that Broadmoor has suddenly run into. This is a continuing problem that's been around for almost a decade, as far as I understand. And I share the concerns that the district might very well go bankrupt in the not too distant future, and then your level of service is going to be zero because you're not going to be able to actually have a police force that is viable. I also share the concern that the matrix was not filled out. That really shows that the district is not caring about responding to what I believe are very legitimate concerns. And also, having grown up in Half Moon Bay, I know that if you have to contract for services outside the district, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. So I hear the concerns of the citizens of the district, but as responsible stewards of the county and of our taxpayers, I think we really need to consider our options going forward that will guarantee that the financial stability of the district exists. Thank you.
Thank everyone who spoke, everyone who wrote emails. Thank you, Chief, for being here. Yeah, I'm going to fundamentally agree with what everyone said, right? In Pacifica, where I sit on the council, we had a discussion many years ago about whether or not we wanted to contract out to the county or salvage our force, and we made the decision we're going to opt to maintain our department. And we did that with the understanding that the costs would likely be higher, and then we started budgeting accordingly. I don't doubt the service levels, and everybody's testimony today it was a testament mostly, I think aside from one caller, but it sounds like the community largely is very supportive of this department, and that's a testament to the level of service that most of your residents have received. It's something to be proud of. And as I hear the passion with which the chief speaks, it seems like you've been on the job for a short while in this jurisdiction, and yet you are fighting for them as though you've been their chief for 40 years. And thank you for that. And it is deeply troubling that you had to inherit this raft of problems that seems to have been snowballing for years. So, you know, I'm erring on the side of what everyone else said. I'm a data-driven guy. I like it more when somebody points at what's right rather than trying to point at what's wrong. Show me the data to support where the efforts are being made. You know, we requested that at the 90-day point we'd have an update, so we'll be reviewing it again, presumably at the next meeting. I asked the question, everyone's referring to that matrix, and we would love to see what that looks like. We'd love if this has a happy ending, and the bottom line winds up being the bottom line. So that's where I am. Thank you.
Well, I'll be short and sweet. I agree with my colleagues here, but I suspect that one of the underlying problems here is that we're not talking about apples and apples, but apples and oranges. I think your 8,200 service calls is defined differently than other police departments right at the moment. Well, perhaps not, but I did not have a clear understanding from your responses as to what constitutes a service call. Okay? It's not our mission to dissolve special districts. I sit on a special district, and like the rest of this group, have had experience. I sit on the Mosquito District Board and have since they had the fraud. And this body helped put that district back together. And hopefully we can do that with you. But my thing is transparency. You have to tell us exactly what's happening over there so we can help you. And if we can't help you, to help the residents of Broadmoor make a good choice on their policing. I personally would support a full-on MSR to step over this matrix and see really what's going on. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. A lot's been said. Chief, I appreciate you being here today. Thank you for your presence. I have a suggestion for the chief's consideration and for the director's consideration and my colleagues' consideration, which is to take those 4 or 5 items that we've spent a lot of time talking about today and see, and a lot depends on the chief's workload, of course, but to see if by July 19th we could come back with very precise responses. 1, to the matrix. 2, to the discrepancies that the chief pointed out in his offer. I think you made an offer to work with the director to resolve those discrepancies. I think that's important. So we're on common ground there. I'd be curious by the 19th if it would be possible. You mentioned that you were working with Supervisor Canepa's office on some financing ideas, perhaps. I'd like to hear about that when we come back to try to determine, is this something that's short-term, long-term, so forth. And then in terms of Supervisor Mueller's or Director Mueller's suggestion about the falling below the $250,000 level, I think that's a county policy that maybe has not been enforced, or maybe it has. I certainly wasn't aware of it, but maybe you could speak to that. But by the 19th, perhaps we could have some clarification, some analyses done on that. I have one concern, which is there might be special circumstances in a district that's a very short-term sort of situation, and I would hate to, I don't know what the consequences are of pulling somebody out of the pool, but I'd be curious about that, and if that could be done by the 19th. And, I think if we were able to achieve those things for that July 19th meeting, I think it would be a wonderful thing, frankly. And maybe the chief would say that's just humanly impossible, so then I would suggest September 20th. But the longer this goes on, I think the more riskier it is for the residents of Broadmoor. So I guess all of my suggestions taken together sort of say, let's put our heads together and take the chief up on his offer of working with the director and do a couple of other things. For me, also, the big question is the financing, and so I'm especially curious about that. But I don't know if it would be proper, Madam Chair, to let the chief respond to any of these comments at this point in time. It's your prerogative, but if not, maybe Mr. Director Bartoli could comment. I'd be curious.
Well, I think this was an information item only. So we're not going to be taking any motions.
Right.
Because it's information.
Right.
And I'm thinking that we have described, different commissioners have described the information that they would like to have come back. And so some from the county, some from the chief, and the chief is saying, I think he said that he would like to correct information. So I heard that. No, I just, before you do that, but what I heard up there was that you wanted to do that. We already have it agendized. And I'm believing that your fiscal year is coming due, so you probably have at least a draft budget. I know that's something that, if not an adopted budget by the next time, because it would be after July, that we will have, that would be another data point. And people have talked about the matrix, which was provided. And so those are the things in information. I just want to clarify that those are the information items, and we're not talking about other things. Is that right? Before you speak. Is that correct?
The only other thing that I had talked about was the letter in support, but we don't need, my understanding of the county policy and looking at it again is that it's indicated now that it's strictly enforced without exception. So that can go ahead and wait and inquire around that later at a later date. But I think all special districts are on notice. It's going to be strictly enforced without exception to any special district.
So when I cryptically said information from the county, I was really trying to say, can we have information on that particular policy and information so that we know? Because I don't know that we're all on the same knowledge
I'll make sure
base
everyone gets a copy of it.
that it should be able to send to even determine whether we want to send a letter. So with that, I just want to clarify, those are the items that we're looking for information coming back. And Chief, if you have a few more responses, please come up to the stand.
Madam Chair and Commission, thank you for indulging me for just a couple more moments. I am in full agreement with working with Director Bartoli. But I'd also ask, as a good faith measure, and as it was brought to my attention this morning via email, that the California Employees Retirement System notified me that the staff of LAFCo had reached out to them and asked them what the process was to transfer Broadmoor employees, or what it would look like for another agency to take us over. And quite frankly, that's not transparent and it's disingenuous. So I would ask in this interim, until the September timeline, that we iron out these matters, that no further forward action happen. And as well as I'm giving you my guarantee, I would ask a guarantee from this board that that doesn't happen. Because when I get a call like that, and I can confirm date and time, that's not a good faith effort. And I've been completely transparent. So you have my word, I would like your word.
Thank you. All right, anything else? Okay.
If I may, through the chair, I'm happy to work with the chief as well, and our staff is happy to work with the chief as well on these particular issues and working through the matrix, and staff understands the direction from the commission about what items to bring back at future agendas. I would be happy to look at the information that Chief Connolly is referring to about this discussion with CalPERS. The LAFCo staff has had conversations with CalPERS, but not on the transfer of employees or anything of that nature. So I'd be happy to talk with him about that offline. Thank you.
Okay, this is an information item only, so I thank again everyone who participated, and I wanted to say, just to reinforce, and I'm now looking at the chair of the Homeowners Association, no action was taken. And regarding the item that you are concerned about, the next item is going to be talking about the procedural steps that would need to be taken. I hope you have that report. If you don't, it's outside. Good, so that you can share that, and you'll see that there's quite a number of procedural steps in there. And again, I encourage you and all your members to participate in helping the district become financially sound. And so that's my bottom line there. All right.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
If you'll just indulge me for a second, I just want to make sure that the director has the list of things that you summarized accurately, just for my own peace of mind, but also for the chief. There's several things.
So yes, if I can, I'll briefly summarize what some of the data points will be. So it would be looking at working with the chief to complete the matrix. It would be looking at any new financial information, including the budget, to bring back to the commission. It would be looking at if the new calls for service data is provided to LAFCo, to review that data and to compare it against public safety communications data, and to bring that back with an amended table and additional information about what types of calls for service they are. It's additional information about the controller's policy and the minimum balance. And then in the July meeting, we'll also have any new information. I don't know if there'll be any audits from the internal auditor that the district has completed or not, but any other new financial information we will bring back to the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does that? Okay. All right, let's move on to, yes?
Good question. Thank you. I heard 2 dates. You said September 19th, and the rest of us are talking about July.
Oh, all right, yes. The next meeting we have is, good point, is July.
19th,
So,
yes.
so that is the
July,
date that
yes.
we're hoping to have that information back. Again, we want to continue. On
That to the commission.
I think that we were very concerned at the last meeting that things are always being pushed off and delayed and diverted, and we wanted to keep us on the, so some things we'll get information back in July, and if things are not, if your budget wasn't passed, just picking one, then we'll get that information that it wasn't passed. Or if you couldn't resolve something, and then we'll get that information back. But we'll just say, what is the status? It's an informational thing. It's a status report. And I think that's important. And then if we have to pick it up in September, then we'll know that too. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. All right. Now on to item number 8. This is information about what would happen if what are the steps for dissolution? And because that question was asked at the last meeting. Again, we've taken no action on doing that, but we said we wanted to know. So if you could give us a presentation about that, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, at the March 2023 LAFCo meeting, the commission directed staff to provide an overview of the LAFCo dissolution process. And again, this is an information-only item, as the chair just mentioned. And under the Cortese-Knotts-Hertzberg Act, dissolution means disincorporation, extinguishment, termination, or of the existence of a special district, and the ending of all its corporate powers, except for as the commission may otherwise provide, pursuant to specific terms and conditions, or for the purposes of winding up the affairs of the district. And I'll talk about what that means and winding up the affairs of the district here in the slide. This is a very brief and simplified kind of matrix and process of what that would look like. So we would have an initiation, and we'll talk about how that initiation of a dissolution can occur, the LAFCO hearing, and the review of the proposal that would be before the commission. If it was approved and there was a protest hearing, and then whether or not that process is sufficient to then take that action to an election, whether or not it's not sufficient protest and there's the order of the approval of the action, whether or not that's approved, and then there's a waiver of a protest hearing with then no subsequent protest or no subsequent election, or if the proposal is then disapproved by the commission. So who can initiate a dissolution? It can be the subject district by resolution, so the board of an agency can decide to dissolve itself and submit that by resolution to LAFCo. An outside agency, such as a county, a city, or a school district, can submit application by resolution, and it has to be, the agency has to be within the affected territory. It can be registered voters or property owners by petition, or it can be LAFCo by resolution and initiation by the commission. And so LAFCo can initiate a dissolution if the action is consistent with a recommendation or determination documented in a prior municipal service review or a prior sphere of influence update. LAFCo must hold a notice public hearing on any dissolution process. As part of the dissolution proposal itself, there is something called a plan for service. And the plan for service discusses who will provide the service if the district is dissolved, how the service will be financed, the impacts of dissolution on adjacent areas and other agencies, and the ability of the successor agency to provide services to the affected area. For a LAFCO initiated dissolution, there are two additional following determinations that have to be made. One is the public service costs of the proposal that the commission is authorizing are likely or less than or substantially similar to the cost of alternative means of providing the service. So instead of dissolving the district, is there another way that they'll be providing the service either currently or another through a creation of another agency? And that the change of organization or reorganization that is authorized by the commission promotes public access and accountability for community services and financial resources of the community. Again, those findings only have to be made specifically if it's a LAFCO initiated dissolution. If the dissolution was approved by the commission, so we've gone through the protest, we've gone through the hearing, and now the commission is deciding on the action. If the dissolution was approved by the commission, then a protest hearing must be held, and the protest threshold depends on who initiates dissolving the district. For LAFCO initiated actions, the protest threshold is 10% of registered voters within the district, or 10% of the number of landowners within the district who also own at least 10% of the assessed value. For non-LAFCO initiated actions, the threshold goes higher, and it goes to 25% of registered voters within the district, or 25% of the number of property owners within the district also owning 25% of the land value. So lower protest threshold for LAFCO initiated dissolutions, higher protest threshold for non-LAFCO initiated dissolutions. If the protest threshold is met, then the commission shall order an election. If the protest threshold is not met, then the commission, if it was approved, then the commission shall issue a certificate of completion. Now, there is another process under Government Code Section 57077.1 that states if the change of organization consists solely of dissolving a district and is consistent with a prior action of a commission, such as an adopted study, a municipal service review, or a sphere of influence, and the proposal was initiated by the affected agency, the commission, or by petition, then the dissolution can be approved after holding only one public hearing, and then if there's majority protest, then the proceeding is terminated, and if there is not, then it is approved. There is no election under that proceedings. So staff is still researching this because it's not a common process that we've seen in other LAFCOs. So we are reviewing this process and see whether or not it would be applicable in any future cases in this county. If an election is held, the majority of voters and the majority of voters vote against the dissolving of the district, the dissolution proposal is then terminated. And it should also be noted that if the dissolution is initiated by the district board itself, then the LAFCO Commission shall immediately approve and order a dissolution without an election. So if it is brought from the board of an agency, the LAFCO's discretion actually is removed, and it is a shall approve the dissolution without an election. Now, there has been, because of the lower threshold for LAFCO initiated dissolutions is at 10% instead of the 25%, over the last 4 years or so, there's been a working group with LAFCo, with the State Association of Special Districts, and the state legislature to draft legislation that would essentially increase the 25% threshold to LAFCO with several caveats. And that bill was signed into law, and that's under SB 938. And we've talked about that at previous commission meetings. So it was signed into law last year, and it creates a new protest threshold of 25% of the registered voters within districts, or 25% of the numbers of landowners, for a LAFCO initiated dissolution. Now, there are, as I had mentioned, several things that come with this. First, the commission must adopt a municipal service review, or an MSR, for the agency, and then find that at least one of the following conditions is met. Either there's been documented chronic service provision deficiencies, expenditure of public funds in an unlawful or reckless manner, failure to adhere to the Public Records Request Act, failure to hold a number of minimum public meetings, failure to perform timely audits, or that recent audits conducted for the district have shown chronic issues with the district's fiscal controls, and then no action has been taken to remediate those issues. There is also, if the commission decides to adopt an MSR and adopt one of those findings and go down the path of dissolving the district, SB 938 also then requires a remediation period of at least 12 months. So at the end of the remediation period, at least 12 months, based on the district's actions, the commission may either adopt a resolution to dissolve the district in accordance with what has priorly transpired from the district and from the commission has adopted, or the commission can rescind the notice of intent to dissolve the district at a noticed public hearing. So again, you have a hinge point kind of at that 12 months period about what action the commission wants to then do and proceed with it, dissolving the district or rescinding that. General considerations for either a LAFCO initiated dissolution or initiation of a dissolution by another agency is looking at a plan for service and successor agency. We're looking at protest thresholds, election costs, and some of the timelines of what that process looks like. For the successor agency and plan for service, if a district, let's say for example, was to dissolve and the district area was wholly within the unincorporated area, the county becomes a successor agency. If it was completely within a city, the city would become the successor agency, again, if the agency dissolves. If there's a split, then there's accordingly split sometimes. Now, what successor agency means in this particular case is not necessarily the direct plan for service provider, but instead the agency that winds up the affairs of the district. Meaning that if there are any liabilities for the district, such as pension liability, that the agency that is the successor agency is responsible for winding up those affairs, paying out pension liabilities going forward. Now, there can also then be funds allocated from the dissolved district to then pay for those ongoing liabilities. So it would not be as if a district is dissolved, the county becomes a successor agency, and then the county itself inherits those liabilities. The liabilities remain with the district as an entity and financial entity, and that the county can then utilize those funds. Yes. Yeah, and if there's questions, please stop me going through this process.
Apologies for interrupting, but does that mean the district continues to collect the revenue through its taxation, through its bonds or whatever it's passed, even though it's not providing services to pay off those obligations?
This would be if the governance body would be dissolved and is no longer providing service, but the revenue that the district was receiving could continue to come to the successor agency to pay for those long-term liabilities.
Thank you.
Yes, if there's property tax.
Can the successor agency be nominated by LAFCO? Does it have to be the county? Could it, for example, in this case, be Daly City Police Department, for example?
For the particular instances of who becomes a successor agency, it is mandated by law. So it's very clear about if it isn't solely in the unincorporated area, the county shall become the successor agency. But again, this is talking about just the liabilities, not necessarily who might provide service to that area where that agency was now no longer providing that service. The county, for example, the county could form a county service area in that unincorporated area where that district was. That county service area could then contract with another entity, whether that be the sheriff. That's if I use Broadmoor for this example, if I contract for sheriffs or another police department. So then there can be a contractual relationship about who provides the service. But for the purposes of who winds up the affairs and unfortunately has to take on the question of paying liability out, that is very clear in LAFCo law that it is either the county if it's in an incorporated area or city if it's within the city boundaries.
And who determines the successor service agency?
So that is then the question of the part of that is then the plan for service. So in any initiation of dissolution, we would have both the identified successor agency for winding up the affairs, but then also in that plan for service, it identifies who that service provider will be and whether there will be another entity that's created to provide that service or whether or not that can be provided organically by the county or another entity.
So that plan for service is determined by LAFCO?
If it's an initiation by LAFCO,
Yeah.
it is a staff. This is one of the things to think about is when we think about the plan for service, LAFCO cannot dictate who the service provider will be. That is something that we have to work with that service provider on to make sure they have the capacity and willingness to be able to serve that area where the district is being dissolved at. And that it's financially viable for that agency to provide that service.
But they, I don't know how to say that. If they're willing, then LAFCO can make that determination that would be a good service successor. Is that right?
I think it's wise to think in terms of a dissolution not being a yes/no proposition, shall a district be dissolved? It is a petition that proposes a reorganization of a particular type. So the petition is going to propose a plan for service in a particular way. And the LAFCO will pass on whether or not that plan for service that's incorporated into the action that was taken by the dissolution proposal. So think of it as an overall proposal, and it would cover various topics, including a plan for service.
And a plan for service, again, if it's a LAFCO initiated action, because that is where we have to really work with who the service provider would possibly be and what steps other agencies would have to take. You know, it's clearer if there is, let's say, for example, a plan for service for an annexation, and the city is annexing a part of unincorporated county, and they have a plan for service, and they're the service provider for that agency or for that area. It's very clear about how that plan for service will be. There's willingness, obviously, from the entity to provide those services. We will talk and discuss about what the financial aspects of that is, but that's a very clear process, and we have clear buy-in then from that service provider. If it's a LAFCO initiated dissolution, there are additional steps that we would need to take to make sure that those services can be provided and brought forward to the commission to then decide on whether or not that is a process they want to go through.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop. Is there any other questions so far before you continue on? It's not a question, but rather a comment is, if sometime in the future LAFCO says, as a commission, we want to go down that path, I'm going to need more information because, and I do better with flow charts so that I can see them, you know, like if it could be flow charted out as to what the decision is, and if yes, it goes this way, and if no, it's not 100% clear. And when you start talking about who has the financial responsibilities versus who provides it, and that could be two different entities, that's also, I need a little bit more information on that, because you had said that, I think I heard that maybe the county could be the financial responsibility. I'm not saying it wants to, but could be, and then actually could contract with Broadmoor police people to continue on, or could with somebody else, or, you know, I'm just not sure how it works. So again, don't need it next meeting, but if we ever get down to that, I'm just saying I'm going to need more specificity on it, because I see it better in a flow chart. So
Absolutely agreed. And this is, I will say, this is trying to be a high level overview for what the process is, and we're not talking about a specific agency at this time.
Right.
But absolutely, because there can be issues about successor and who's providing the service, and they can be two different entities, and that can be not clear sometimes about what that process may look like. I think we will be talking about this more in the future, and I'd be happy to bring back more information at that time. So then so we talked about successor agency, plan for service. Again, there's the protest threshold where on LAFCO initiated dissolution, there is a lower protest threshold under current law, with this the 10%. There is an SB 938 process, but again, that would take initial steps within a municipal service review and those findings. There is a question about election costs, because if there are appropriate thresholds to force an election, the agency that has proposed the dissolution is the agency that then pays for an election. So for an LAFCO initiated dissolution, the costs for an election would then be borne by this body. So that is another thing to take into consideration. Then there is the general dissolution timelines, and these are just general estimates for what this is. So for a LAFCO initiated dissolution, we estimate that it probably would approximately take 12 months to complete, to bring to a hearing. For a LAFCO initiated dissolution under SB 938, again, that would be with the creation of an municipal service review, so there would be additional steps before we even had a discussion about dissolving the district. We think that would be approximately 20 months. And then there's also the continuation of discussions with the district and other affected agencies that can occur during these times. And maybe there is no action that necessarily comes from the LAFCO body, but the continued discussions from a study that we can have with the commission and provide updates to about how the district is performing from a financial standpoint or other ways. We did look for some examples of dissolutions, and we came up a little bit empty-handed, and I'll talk about reason why. So in the last 20 years, for San Mateo County, there's only been 2 district dissolutions that have been processed by LAFCO. That was the district dissolution of the Skyline County Water District in 2009, and the Los Trancos County Water District in 2015. And both of those were initiated by the district's respective boards. We've had different reorganizations into community services districts, but those are the only 2 dissolutions in the last 20 years. In looking at other LAFCOs throughout the state, we could find very few examples, if any, of LAFCO-initiated dissolutions of districts. Contra Costa LAFCO is currently going through this process with the potential dissolution of a county service area, and the county service area, in theory, provides park and recreation functions, but doesn't have a secure source of revenue to actually provide those services, so it does not provide either of those functions at this currently. And while there has been discussions in Contra Costa about this particular topic, they actually paused for 12 months, similar to the SB 938 process, to reevaluate the option of actually going through a LAFCO-initiated dissolution. So, I'm happy to answer any questions, any additional questions about charts, and I can go back to any of the slides. This isn't information item only, but similar to the previous information only item, we're happy to receive direction or receive information about what other additional data or information about this process that the commission would like to see, and we'd be happy to bring back additional reports as requested.
Any other commissions, does the commission have any other questions of staff at this moment?
Yes.
All right, certainly.
So thank you for the report, and I think I have a pretty good picture about there's 2 potential LAFCO dissolution processes between the SB 938 and the conventional approach. I think what I heard through all that is there's also a non-LAFCO dissolution process, which then would come back to be processed through us, but wouldn't be initiated by us.
Correct.
If you could speak for a moment on what that might look like and maybe elaborate a little.
Certainly. So initiation for a dissolution, as you had mentioned, can be brought by LAFCO, and now we have a conventional way, and now we have the tool with SB 938, or the dissolution can be brought forward by the district board, the agency itself, to dissolve itself. It can be brought forward by an affected agency, meaning a county, a city that has territory within the affected boundaries of the district, or a school district that has affected boundaries within the district. Or it can be brought by petition of the registered voters or landowners that reside within the district. So in those scenarios, from a process standpoint, again, the plan for service may be more refined if another entity, especially if the entity that's going to provide the service is the one asking for dissolution, that plan for service may be more refined in that case. In other cases, they may be similar to what a LAFCo initiation dissolution may be, like a petition and plan for service from a resident, or by petition from residents or landowners, would still need to be reviewed, much like a LAFCo initiated one, about understanding about whether the entity that the petition says will provide the service has the capacity to do so. In the process, if it's not initiated by LAFCo, then it is the 25% threshold, again, for protest.
So, forgive me to anyone for whom I need to ask forgiveness, as I don't wish to put this indelicately, though I do have a specific hypothetical in mind whereby perhaps an agency is fiscally falling under its own weight, and before a 12-month threshold would even be met, there might be a more urgent need to find a path toward dissolution. Could you specifically help me understand in such an instance the likely path that would take?
For that hypothetical, there are 2 points to that I would probably respond to. There is the LAFCO point, and then there is the non-LAFCO function that needs to also occur. The LAFCO point is that, yes, in that scenario, there could be conversations with that district about what the future of that service provider would be, and whether or not that service provider sees that there is a future forward from a financial standpoint. If it is clear and they're kind of coming to that understanding that no, there is not, that it is possible, then the district could initiate the dissolution themselves, and that's would take that conversation. There is also the aspect that LAFCO could then, or another entity, could go through the process and work to solving the district if there are clear signs that the district is not able to provide its service because of financial issues. That's the LAFCO part. The non-LAFCO part, though, is the points of if there is a immediate need for service that an agency can no longer provide, and there is not a LAFCO process to say this district has been dissolved yet, then that is the district, LAFCO, other entities working together to figure out how service then can be provided to that service area. It's not necessarily a LAFCO function. I think LAFCO is here to kind of help move with that conversation, and we've certainly been informed, hopefully, by the district about that certain circumstance, so we can help other agencies understand what the challenges are and what the need is for that entity, because there is that part of, we are not service providers, and if there is a service that needs to be provided, especially if it's a public safety service, let's say, for example, then there needs to be a continuation of that service. So LAFCO is involved in that conversation about how that service can be provided, but you may have timelines that may not line up because there may be more of an immediate need to provide that service before a LAFCO process could happen.
So what I think I hear you say is that in such an eventuality, essentially, ideally, if given notice within the context of a LAFCO procedure not having the time to initiate, a bunch of entities could come together with that entity so that that entity could figure out the softest possible landing for the services ultimately that need to be provided for the residents.
Correct. And then looking forward at what the governance structure then looks like for that agency as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments and or questions, I should say? And we now open up for public comment on item number 8. Do we have any speakers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did not receive any, give me 1 second. This might be for this item. Yes, we do have Elizabeth Jackson wishing to speak on item 8. You want to speak on EPASD or item 8? These are two different items. On the dissolution. Okay. Um, please- Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Elizabeth Jackson. I live in East Palo Alto, and I have a question on dissolution. um, when I heard the staff talking about who pays for the election, if there has to be election initiated uh, by the commissioners or the city or the ratepayers, and that's the question. Uh, if the special district, has ratepayers and they wish to have an election, who pays for that election? They have ratepayers, and it's not the county or the city or whoever the commissioners are paying this bill for their service. It's the ratepayers who are paying for it. So if there's a dissolution, who pays for that election? Anyone that you can answer or your staff can answer. I didn't hear no one ask that question. I heard people talking about election.
Let me see if I
ask for who pays for it.
if I could. So if a special district, hypothetical special district, is supported by rate paying,
Yes.
and that special
pays all the bills,
and that special district says we want to be dissolved.
No, the district doesn't say. I think he says that
LAFCo.
List are different groups that.
Right, but
I think he lists all the groups that can request a dissolution. So I want to know if there's an election comes up, which voters has to do with.
Okay.
I want to know who pays for that.
All right.
So if the city or if the district or if the county want to resolve that, who pays for it? If that district has ratepayers.
All right.
I can try to answer that question if I may through the chair. So it depends on who submits the application to LAFCo. So if in this example, if it's LAFCo that initiates the petition to dissolve the district or a district, then then LAFCO pays for that election cost.
Oh, LAFCO pays for it, not the ratepayers.
If it's a LAFCO proposal, if the city submits an application to LAFCO, and there's protest to get to an election, so now we've met the protest requirements, and we're at an election. If there's an election, then the city, because they're the ones that submitted the application to LAFCO, pays for those election costs.
Okay, so it's not the ratepayers.
I can't speak to, well, in this scenario where if it's the city, then if the city is not the district, the ratepayers of a special district and the city is dissolving the district, then those are technically two different funds.
Yes, they're two different entities.
Yeah, they're two different entities with their own.
I'm asking you the entity that has the ratepayers.
Yes. So if there's a ratepayer district that proposes to dissolve itself, then there is no election under that scenario.
No.
So there's no election. If the district says we want to dissolve, there is no election.
What
It's
if
only
there's an outside entity that want to resolve this?
Yeah, if it's another entity, then yes, then it is paid for by whoever submitted the application.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Not the ratepayers. Okay, thanks.
Thank you,
All
Ms.
right.
Jackson.
Do we have any other speakers?
And Madam Chair, we have no one wishing to speak on Zoom, so no further
right.
comments for this item. Thank you.
This was a this was an information item, so we do not need a motion, but I just want to know if there's any other final comments by the commission on this item. Okay, then we will go on to item 9, which is a LAFCo item, and there are two item 9s. 9A is nominations for the LAFCO board.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So LAFCo has announced that their nominations are open for the 2023-2024 Board of Directors. The recruitment committee is accepting nominations for a city member and a public member in the coastal region, which we reside in. The election will be conducted during the LAFCO annual conference on October 19th in 2023. Nominations for those two positions are due to LAFCO by Monday, September 18th, and there are required nominations by the commission and submittal then of the attached resume form. So if there is interest from any commissioners about that process, please contact me and we can work on nominations, and we do have another meeting in July to bring that back.
Do we need a motion of the commission, or is it just individual members saying, well, I'd like to do it, or put my name? It's individual.
It's individuals, and certainly contact me when we would, if there was a nomination packet and there was a nomination to be submitted, then that would require a motion, and that's why we still would have, we could do that at the July meeting.
Okay.
So that concludes that report under 9A.
Any questions? Okay. B.
9B is the 2023 LAFCO Achievement nominations. LAFCO annually recognizes commissions, individual commissioners, staff, legislatures, government agencies, and projects for exceptional outcomes or contributions to LAFCO's mission. Nominations may be made by an individual, a LAFCO, or another organization. And so LAFCO is requesting nominations and support materials for that nomination no later than Friday, August 18th, 2023. So again, if there's any proposals or requests for nominations for this particular category, please contact me and we can bring that forward at a July meeting.
Any comments or questions? Okay. Do we have any public speakers on item 9A or B?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do not have anybody in chambers or on Zoom wishing to speak on item 9A or B.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go on to item number 10, which is the Legislative and Policy Committee. And there are some actions that have been taken and some things that are being considered. So, Sophia, if you'd let us know.
Yes, thank you. So 10A is a letter of support for Assembly Bill 1753, which is LAFCO's omnibus bill that seeks to add two minor changes to the Act. The first is to allow the executive officer to submit a resolution adopted by the Commission by either regular mail, which is our San Mateo LAFCO's current practice, or by electronic means with a confirmation of receipt by the intended recipient. The second change is to clarify any language or any agreement, clarify that any agreement for the exchange of property tax revenues required in accordance with state law must be received by LAFCO prior to the executive officer deeming an application to be complete, and that is also San Mateo LAFCO's standard practice. On April 10, the Legislative and Policy Committee approved a letter of support for AB 1753, and staff sent the letter to the chair and members of the Assembly Local Government Committee, LAFCO Executive Officer, Senator Josh Becker, and Assembly members Ting, Pappen, and Berman. That concludes 10A. Any questions?
No, I see none.
Okay. Moving on to 10B, same slide. So the legislative report, LAFCO is tracking 19 bills. There are a few items that might be of interest to LAFCO, including Assembly Bill 930, which we discussed at the last commission meeting. This would authorize legislative bodies of two or more local governments to jointly form a RISE district, which would focus on the funding, the planning, acquisition, and construction of housing, infill supportive infrastructure, or other related projects. A RISE district would be authorized to use various sources of revenue, including property tax revenue, local sales tax, and transient occupancy taxes. The bill would provide for the establishment of a governing board with representatives of each participating local government. Since this bill is focused primarily on the generation of funding and governance of those expenditures. CalAFCO's current position on this item is watch, or is neutral, but is tracking the bill in the event that the scope of these RICE districts changes. The second item that might be of interest to San Mateo LAFCo is SB 360, which would clarify language in the California Coastal Act of 1976 regarding the composition of the commission, and add clarifying language that, or add staff or governing members of JPAs and LAFCOs to the list of entities that can sit on the Coastal Commission. So similar to LAFCO, the bill would make clear that being an employee of another public agency, county supervisor, or city council person, and voting in that capacity on an issue of Coastal Commission relevancy does not preclude commission membership. And CalAFCO is in support of that item. And finally, AB 918 would rename Pioneers Memorial Healthcare District as the Imperial Healthcare District, and would authorize the expansion to include all of Imperial County. The bill initially proposed requiring Imperial LAFCO to complete the entire expansion process within 150 days of filing the resolution of application, waive protest proceedings, and remove LAFCO's ability to deny the application. The bill was recently amended in April to entirely remove LAFCO participation from the process. CalAFCO is strongly opposed to this bill and has submitted 2 letters in opposition of AB 918. That concludes my presentation.
Okay.
Any questions?
Do we have any public comments on this one? Item 10A and B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have nobody in chambers wishing to speak, and nobody on Zoom with a virtual hand raised for item 10A or B.
Okay. Then we'll go on to 11, which is commission or staff reports, and staff has an update on the East Bay Sanitary District proposal.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, just a brief update on what's known as LAFCO File 22-09, which is the application to establish the East Palo Alto Sanitary District as a subsidiary district of the City of East Palo Alto. The application is still under review by LAFCO staff, and it is still deemed incomplete. We are tentatively looking at having this hearing ready for this summer, potentially in July at the LAFCO meeting. We have a web page for the East Palo Alto proposal, and we're updating it accordingly. So we will have in the future, once it is deemed complete, we will have timelines and information about the proposal up on our website for any members of the public that are interested. And obviously, if we do have a scheduled hearing, we will have notices for the community and affected agencies when that hearing is set. I just wanted to give you a brief update, though, that we are still reviewing it.
And I understand that there was discussion about having that hearing in East Palo Alto. Is that correct?
That is correct. When this item is brought to the commission, the idea is that we would have it in East Palo Alto to allow the most public participation that we can. So we will also notify where that location will be once we have set a date and a location for it.
Any comments or questions on that? My comment is I would like whatever, I like the idea of going to East Palo Alto. I'd want to make sure that it's Zoomable, or however you say that, because there might be people who cannot participate in person.
We are also looking into that, and hopefully we will be able to use the city council chambers where they have had hybrid meetings.
Okay.
But if we are not able to use that space, we are looking at making sure that hybrid will be available in whatever space we are in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there items public on this one?
Yes, Madam Chair. We did receive a speaker slip from Ms. Gail Wilkerson, wishing to speak on item 11. You're good.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening or afternoon. I'm Gail Wilkerson, and I'm from East Palo Alto. I'm not a good speaker, so bear with me. I come to you. This is just information So I wanted to add more information to your bucket there that you keep. Um, I have problems. See, you guys were well. I don't know if you're LAFCo or not. I know that he is. Um, but there was a report, MSR report, put out, and it was prepared by. This is for your information. The developers, okay, not arm's length. They prepared it for LAFCO. Yes, if that's. I don't know. Well, they prepared it for LAFCO, their consultant, because the other one they prepared failed. So the developers know more about engineering and piping. So they presented it to their consultant. Then LAFCO came to the city and presented. Have you guys heard of racketeering? Because this is what it sounds like. I only have a brief history in the law. I'm a paralegal with a bachelor's science degree in paralegal studies with the emphasis on real estate. And this looked like a lot like racketeering. Is that my time? All that? Oh boy. Okay, I just want you to know that it's not arm's length. That this is all a lot of commotion about suffocating East Palo Alto, coming in, paying $2 for a piece of land, and they're trying to get more. Now, Aiken, the general manager, he's bent over backwards. He's tried to do everything that they want. Even he said he would increase the rates of the citizens, people that have been there like 50, 60 years, like me. And there's just been gentrified, and these people started all of this to get the older residents out. So I don't want my time. Oh, I got more time.
You have 1 more minute.
1 more minute. Okay. Well, this is what I want you to know. Add that to your information barrel. Okay. They have been paying. Residents have been paying overcharging on their property tax and receiving very little services. Now the developers are coming in. Like I said, they want to pay $2 for a piece of land, and they want to make buku profits, and they want to make it off of the back of the citizens. And they started going after the sanitary district. So that's the definition of racketeering to me. The developers, the cronies, the cliques, and the crooks all got together, and they're trying to take over and it's a lot of personality that are like Aiken. He's from a different country, and they don't want to talk to him. He's a general manager. He's saving the city a lot of money. He's doing the work of two jobs. Go over to Menlo Park, you see that they have 2 people doing the same job that he's doing. There's $25 million to $29 million dollars in their coffers. The city wants to take that because they're always squirming around for money.
I think that wrap it up in 10 seconds.
Oh, 10 seconds. Oh, I got where I left off. But that's the gist of it. This is all a bunch of crap. That's what it is.
All right.
They're not insolvent. $29 million. What would you do? Money draws crooks.
All righty.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkerson.
Thank
And with
you.
that, Madam
And
Chair.
thank you for hanging in there and making that comment. Thank you.
And with that, Madam Chair, we have no more comments for item
Great.
11.
And now we are on adjournment, and at 5:02. So long meeting.